After witnessing what this woman did on a plane, the other passengers were utterly lost for words. Passengers en route from Atlanta to Chicago probably weren't expecting anything out of the ordinary to take place during their trip. Their hopes of an incident-free flight were dashed, however, when one woman started being disruptive. And although her fellow flyers begged her to behave herself, she ignored them, and as a result, the flight was delayed by a mind-numbing 4 hours. Indeed, air travel can be stressful at times. Not only do passengers have to organize their luggage, stand in line, pay attention to instructions, and sit in a cramped space, but they also have to do so in the company of scores of other travelers. In other words, it takes patience to fly. And perhaps inevitably, there's been a rise in incidences of aggression on airplanes. But given shrinking legroom in the airplane cabin, severe delays, and surly security staff, it's perhaps not surprising that passenger violence is on the increase. Badly designed airports can also prove a real bugbear for the traveling public. In particular, the apparent need to fill as much floor space as possible with expensive stores. If even 1 or 2 of these were removed, there would be more room for waiting passengers to sit down. What's more, an article in British newspaper The Guardian has even suggested that air travel exposes divisions in status. Essentially, rich people enjoy a much better flying experience, skipping lines and enjoying first-class travel. Consequently, people who witness this may feel worse because they contrast their own discomfort with what they see. Perhaps the biggest complaint from regular flyers, though, concerns other passengers. Unfortunately, when humans are put in stressful, cramped conditions, they tend to notice the personal habits of other people all the more acutely. But despite this, what happened on the flight to Chicago is still beyond the pale. As the American Airlines plane was on the tarmac awaiting takeoff, one woman was angrily confronting a flight attendant. Additionally, she was allowing her dog to run around wherever it wanted on the plane. And allegedly, the ruckus all started when a flight attendant asked Ariana Fletcher to restore her seat to the upright position in preparation for takeoff. Apparently, that was enough to drive Fletcher to incoherent rage. For this reason, Fletcher stopped minding her dog, which then ran amok down the aisle. However, fellow passenger Michael Nash caught most of the ensuing confrontation on camera. And in his video of the incident, we can see Fletcher throwing her hands up threateningly. Furthermore, although we can't hear exactly what's being said, other passengers are angrily telling the woman to sit back down. In Nash's video, moreover, the woman can be seen repeatedly ignoring instructions to return to her seat. Then another attendant appears on the scene and tries to pick up the errant dog. But before she can do that, Fletcher turns and scoops up the animal herself. Then finally, and only after a lot of argument, Fletcher takes the dog and returns to her seat. Subsequently, a person can be heard saying, "We just want to go home. We all just want to go home." That's because Ariana Fletcher apparently isn't about to let anyone else have the last word. Indeed, as can be seen in the clip, her tirade begins anew. She shouts loudly, "You mother effers, lucky I want to go home too, because there's going to be a problem when we get back to Chicago." It's not clear who this vague threat is directed towards, although she's responding to her fellow passengers' words. She doesn't seem to know where they came from. As a result, she appears to be addressing the plane in general. Unfortunately for everyone else on the plane, though, the flight attendant has bad news for Fletcher if she thinks she's about to fly back to Chicago. She announces instead that the plane will be returning to the gate. The news is met with groans of frustration from those within earshot. Eventually, Fletcher was removed from the aircraft and the plane later took off. However, the delay endured by the other passengers reportedly lasted an agonizing 4 hours. And perhaps surprisingly, the disruptive woman was not arrested. In fact, she was even allowed to board a later flight. Of course, this isn't the first occasion that flight attendants have been forced to remove an unruly passenger from a flight. One woman on another American Airlines flight in 2016, for instance, had allegedly stopped taking her medication, leading to her behaving erratically. The captain therefore radioed for help, and Charlotte police boarded the plane in order to remove her. In a video of the incident, she's sadly clearly in some distress, muttering, "My dad used to be a captain. I don't want to talk to the captain." Furthermore, she insists this is a real-life story. And eventually, 3 police officers are needed to attend to the distraught and apparently confused passenger. One of the officers then addressed the person in the seat next to her, asking whether they're traveling together. He then leans over the woman, but she makes a grab for his sunglasses, causing him to sternly reprimand her. Then things start to turn very ugly. Subsequently, the woman begins angrily shouting at one of the officers, seemingly goading him into hitting her. She yells, hit me, I dare you to hit me." Finally, despite her struggling, officers are able to get the pair of handcuffs on her. Ultimately, an unruly passenger on a flight causes distress to just about everyone involved, including themselves. Sometimes that passengers are experiencing some kinds of mental difficulty and so can't be blamed for their actions. On other occasions, though, the blame may just lie much closer to home.